皆さんおはようございます。
Everyone, good morning. This is my name is Kusaka from the Global Core of the Naruto Educational University. So this is our 5th talk live of our university. So thank you very much for coming. So today we had more than 100 participants registered to be part of this. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. So before we begin, I have a few announcements to make. So the first point is that this event we plan to record in our archive. So please understand that this Zoom session will be recorded. The second point is we will have Mr. Nishikata speak to us, but in terms of your questions, those participating online, please feel free to, at any timing, put your questions in the chat box. However, if you leave your question in the chat box, it's just going to be a two-way conversation because he's going to just respond into the chat box itself. So if you want to ask him directly, then you can click the raise hand button and you can ask the question audibly. And if you don't mind showing your face on video, then please turn your video on or your camera on. But like I said, we are going to record this in the archive. This will be posted on YouTube, so please understand. And those here in this room, please feel free to raise your hand to ask your questions. International students, we have many of you here, so you can feel free to ask your questions in English. Okay, so how we're going to progress this is that we're going to have Nishikata-san come up here shortly, but he's going to give his lecture for 30 to 40 minutes. And after that, we are going to open the floor for a Q&A session. So we would like to call Mr. Nishikata to the stage, but I just want to give you a brief talk on why we decided to invite him today. Okay, can you, I'm sharing my screen, can you see it? Okay, so this is Nishikata-san is a specialist from JICA, and we have had a really good relationship with him so far. We have many international students from Central America. Also, we have trainees. We accept trainees from El Salvador. So in every instance, we have Mr. Nishikata come to Naruto to give us training. And this is something personal, but when I first met Mr. Nishikata, that was 18 years ago or almost 20 years ago. And this is a photo we took back then. So this was my second session dispatchment to Dominican Republic. And at that time, centered on Honduras, we were working on a project, a mathematics project, a public mathematics project. And I was in the Dominican Republic. And I was, so I brought the mathematics specialist to Tegucigalpa in Honduras, and we held a workshop. So these photos don't really portray how it was back then, but I have several here. And after that, after becoming a specialist, when I went to Juba in South Sudan, we had Mr. Nishikata come all the way there too. So he has been very cooperative with us. And back in March, we took a business trip to Senegal. And at that time, we had a long car drive. So we talked a lot on the car, and the way he spoke, the tone, so much passion in his voice. And that passion was exactly the same 18 years ago when we first worked together. His passion has never waned for all these years, and it just really brought back great memories. And when I was talking to him, Mr. Nishikata said that, you know, maybe I only have a few more years to go. And I thought, well, we just have to invite him. And he has built so much experience in international cooperation. So it's a pleasure to have him here today. So Mr. Nishikawa, I know you are a very busy person, but thank you so much for coming here today. We're really looking forward to your talk. So Please go ahead. Okay, so please welcome him to the stage. So thank you very much for having me today. It is my pleasure. I am Nishikata from JICA, so thank you again. So Naruto Education University has always been very good to me. And in terms of training, in terms of various programs, they have been very cooperative. So this university is so important for JICA's educational programs. They have been really contributing greatly to us, so thank you again. Today, what I want to do is that, well, I was talking with Professor Kusaka about what exactly to talk about, and he asked me if I could share my story of my career path. So what I am doing at JICA, so it is a little embarrassing to share my personal story, but I want to share with you why I am here today. So my lecture is going to be centered on that. And also our topic is Central America. So I'm going to focus on Central America and talk about how JICA has been cooperating with Central American region. So here I go. And so I was a teacher before, and I did graduate from an education university too. So this is my subtitle. So after that, after working as a teacher, I went to grad school. I worked at a government agency. So this is my brief bio. And so why did I strive to become a teacher? So this is going to be my story from the past, but when I was in 6th grade in elementary school, so among our friends, what was very popular among us was to save money to go buy a book because it made us feel grown up. So we went to buy books, and I didn't know, but I just took this novel called 24 Eyes. And I didn't really know much about the book, but this story takes place in the Shodoshima Island, which is close to this region. And it's about a teacher working at a small school, teaching 12 students, and then the war began, and I was extremely moved reading this novel. So I thought I need to become an elementary teacher and really devote my life in rural areas, providing education in rural areas. So since 6th grade elementary school, my dream was to become an elementary school teacher. So I thought of what to do to make my dream come true. So when I became a high school, when I entered high school, I asked my teacher and he said, I don't know. And we didn't have the internet back then. So I went to the bookstore and took hold of books that was like training manual to get into college. So that's how I learned how to become a, and then I, before I took my test, this was spring vacation time after my 3rd year in college. And I was in a college in Hokkaido area, but I came all the way to Shodoshima Island, and I went to that small rural school. I sat on the bench and I promised myself I am going to become a teacher. And then I studied very hard to take the test. And then I became an elementary school teacher. But at the same time, I was very interested in other countries, especially in the NHK broadcasting program. There was a weekly program that showed all these reportings from international reportings, and I learned about the Vietnam War. I learned about the poverty situation in the overseas, and I was living in Niigata Prefecture back then, but I learned that there are all these worlds out there, and I wanted to work in those places, and I did not know how though. So I just kept working as an elementary school teacher. And after that, so 1987, from 1987, I became part of the JOCB. But this really was by chance. I learned about the region in Nepal. I watched a documentary on NHK, and I watched that program and I thought, oh, there is a system to volunteer to work abroad. So I went to a briefing session that was held near Niigata Station. And then that's how I joined this organization. And back then, the first time I was the first person to participate from Niigata Prefecture. So our education board really had to get everything ready really quickly, but they sent me out eventually. And after I was there, I first did not know where Honduras was on the map. So, and I kind of vaguely knew that Honduras was a Spanish-speaking country. So I was in a Spanish-speaking region, actually. So this picture is where it shows me teaching mathematics. And finally, I was called by the education board of Tegucigalpa City, and they told me that it's very important to raise teachers. So I supported this program to raise teachers, and then also the teaching. And after that, I returned to Niigata Prefecture. I resumed my job as a elementary school teacher. But back then, by comparing Honduras and Japan, I really realized that the education in Japan was extremely blessed. So I was very happy working as a teacher, but then I always thought that this was a path that was always there for me. So midway, I quit my teaching job and I went back to school, and I went to grad school. And at that time, what always was nagging in my heart, in my mind, was that school education is there to make children happy. And that's what I've always believed. But through school education, there is always unfairness. And that was what I felt, especially in developing countries. What I felt was that where the child is born determines which kind of school they can attend. So that leads to problems in the society. And school education is supposed to make people happy, but why is this bringing unfairness into the world? So this always was on my mind. And that's exactly what I learned back in grad school. So I look back at those times, and I think that was very good, because when you talk about education, we feel that everything is rosy, but from the sociology standpoint, the school education system in society, how is it functioning? That standpoint was born in me when I studied in grad school. So this was a very good experience. So I didn't have much information. I was in Niigata. So when I went to grad school, I thought that I could immediately enter into international corporation path, but this was quite difficult for me. So I did not know what to do.
大学院の先生から外務省で在外の大使館
ministry in the embassy, there was a position that specialist or researcher specialist. If you check the homepage, you can hit it. So at the time, I didn't have much money, and then I had a retirement, some allowance. It's only the short amount. Then I was teaching at the cram school, trying to make my needs. And then I was about around 30 years old. So I was kind of in a hurry. Then I decided to go overseas. Then it was good for me. So foreign ministry, it is the ministry, the overseeing, and under that, under which the JICA are positioned, and the whole theme is international cooperation. And then also there are a lot of activities, grassroots activities, and how ODA can be developed. I learned a lot. recollecting my past, I feel it was very beneficial to me. But at that time, I was really desperate to work hard. Around the year 2000, I was there until 2001. And in November, we had a very big hurricane, and then self-defense force were dispatched to Honduras for the first time. And after that, the government decided to renovate the country. So as a donor country, first came the UNDP, United States, USF, and Germany, GTZ, Japan, together with the Ministry of Education, made a plan how to restore the country. And at that time, I was working for the embassy, and I joined the team in terms of educational development. At that time, in JICA, I was working as there was a position for the advisor to the deputy education minister. Then for 4 years, I took that job. After that, Mr. Kusama said, I went into the specialist position. So I started my career as a JICA specialist. Over 20 years, I've been engaging in JICA activity. If you are interested in my career, in this partner, JICA career information site is there. So if you click on that, you can see various specialist careers, and you can make reference to them. So please click JICA and partner. That I am international cooperation specialist. You can see many other positions as a staff or as other positions. So today I start my career here. And starting from 2001 to 2000 up until 2009, I was a long-term expert at JICA. I wrote my experience in my book. If you click on Amazon in the Central America mathematics, the book is still available, so please check on that too. And also, you can also check in the library. This is the book, so you can make reference. As Professor Kusama said, for 4 countries and 1 in Caribou, it was so-called the very broad cooperation among the Central American countries. Each country is very small in size. Only the population is also small. So there is one project in one country, but in the Central America, gathering them is less than 10 million people. Honduras population is increasing, but together only 40 million in Myanmar is also small. So together with various countries in Central America, and also they speak Spanish, and need to work in Spanish. That means Japanese resources are very limited, and we needed to make it more effective. Then I learned after kickoff, when you say mathematics, you think any country is the same. However, at first JICA thought that way, but however, it is difficult for education to go overseas because it's the same mathematics, arithmetics. However, but each country has different view or different thinking on the mathematics education. Right now, I'm working in the Asia, Africa, and in Central America, but each area has different perspective on mathematics education. So when the population is less than 10 million, then we must respect their own perspective of education. So I learned that at my first task. At that time, in those 4 countries in Central America, I developed the textbook and then the workbooks. That was my achievement. And in Honduras and Guatemala, I would like to explain as an example. In Honduras, and then for other Central American countries, I was engaging in those 5 countries. Here in Honduras, I have helped to develop the textbook and then the supplementary materials. Then starting from there, we expanded our project. But to make the textbook is to improve the learning skills of students. Then I also checked that as a graph numerically in Honduras. There was the survey in all over the country. So as it says, that the improvement trend was seen. Then that the effect we needed to check whether the textbook distribution was beneficial or not. Then, so the red mathematics and the blue is national language. So at that time, we could only detect the improvement trend. But in Guatemala, with the JOCB that we have developed the teaching materials, the volunteers were really smart, and then up until the 4th grade, they have developed the textbooks. Then the left-hand side, this is not the clear data, but we have developed the textbook and as a pilot and also control schools. These are the pilot area that the textbook we have developed has been used. Then, as you can see, that it is a very beneficial effect was retained. Then I made a presentation to the Deputy Educational Minister. So they decided to distribute all over the country in Guatemala. That was one achievement by JOCB. Overseeing that project, I also helped, but it was a very successful case of JOCB activity. For maybe it's been over 10 years. So now they are trying to revise the textbooks to suit for the time. And then since 2009 to 2016 or 2019, I engaged in the El Salvador. So what is the OCV? That all the specialists of international cooperation. If you check the JICA homepage, you can easily check that this position. But if I may explain in summary, that is the JICA is trying to develop the coaching skills and then development support. So planning and operational guidance and evaluation of educational technical cooperation project, and also technically support to enhance the quality of project. And also some people may in charge of the evaluation. Those are the main tasks. And at that time, you may have received a pamphlet at the entrance as a JICA task that is written in the Japan's ODA white paper or white paper published by the Foreign Ministry. You can also check that white papers. So in the future, that our achievement can be written in the white paper. But Africa, Ethiopia, Senegal, South Africa, Sierra Leone. Before Ebola, I visited Sierra Leone and Burkina Faso, Rwanda. Mr. Kusaka is a specialist in this area. In Rwanda, it's, as you know, we had a very sad incident. So we want to really help out. In the Central America, Palestine, Asia, Palestine, in Asia, Myanmar, before Suu Kyi, Thein president, I visited there. Since then, I've been engaged in this area of Asia, Laos, and Cambodia, and Pakistan. Pakistan right now that we are trying to grassroots education who cannot go to school. Yesterday in Bangladesh, I had a meeting concerning the Bangladesh education. In various areas in the world, we are trying to make education better. After that, as I mentioned, I visited El Salvador as a specialist. Since 2016 to 2019, I was a long-term expert for JICA in charge of overseeing the Second Central American Regional Mathematics Education Corporation. First time I engaged in the elementary school, and the second time I engaged in the middle and high school mathematics. As achievement in El Salvador, we have developed the curriculum and revised the curriculum of the middle and high school mathematics, and then also the teachers' opportunity improvement for the textbook development. In Nicaragua, also revision of middle and high school math curriculum textbook development. At that time, I learned from the lesson from the first task, and then I had a lot of business trip overseas. It was very difficult for me. So this area was a hub in the central, but the Honduras, it wasn't a hub. So in the El Salvador, I had very ineffective business trip. So I needed to revise. Then El Salvador, the teachers were really excellent. I'm going to speak up. お願いします。
Okay, then I want to continue talking a little bit more about El Salvador because Mr. Phillips, Honorary Phillips is here. He was a central figure in this work, and it's not what I did, it's what they did. So, well, I have the pleasure of introducing it, but what was the traditional teaching system like in El Salvador? It's pretty similar to what it was in the developing countries, but basically what happened is that students just copied what was written on the blackboard instead of understanding the problems themselves. The teachers weren't paying much attention to how much the children learned. They just kept on going. So this is just like one direction teaching. So that used to be the education system. So we thought, how can we change this situation? As you can see, the girl in the picture, how can we create an environment where students can solve problems on their own? So that was our big task. If you can see that, look at the picture, the notebook picture. This is a beautifully written notebook. Before it was a beautifully written notebook, just copying anything on the blackboard. But this notebook is an evidence of our learning process where children, this notebook tells that the children understood and put the numbers, put the calculations into their own understanding on their notebook. So in that process, the teachers would, until a child could get to this goal, teachers could introduce peer learning, or they could do one-on-one learning, so that ultimately all the students would be able to do that. So that was how we set up our problem at the beginning. So with the Ministry of Education and in us together, what we produced was that the project of the name was ESMATE, it's El Salvador Mathematics, but we developed this program to help students attain that goal of learning. So the words used in the curriculum were too technical, and the teachers themselves did not understand those technical terms. So that was one problem, like words like competency, social construct, philosophy, those words, the logic and what was on site, there was a disparity. Therefore, using those words did not help the teachers understand how to run a classroom. So simply speaking, for example, when doing addition of, how do we create this construct, they did not understand. So rather, the children are ultimately going to be the learners, so they have to be the focus and the care has to be given to them. So that was our fundamental idea. Therefore, also, another important point was to create the kind of learning that anybody could understand. So for example, if you understand this point and that point, then you can understand the whole picture. If you don't teach like that, then the teachers just become too overwhelmed. If you do this and if you do that, then this possibility will happen. If we suggest it that way, then as you can see here on this slide, this was published by the El Salvador Ministry of Education. This was in their training material, but it says high educational materials, and it also says from teaching to support learning. So if you do that both, then that will create active learning, and it will also lead to peer learning. So in terms of high quality educational materials, the Ministry of Education would be 100% responsible for them. If the materials are not good enough, they will be responsible in improving. However, supporting to learning, this was the responsibility of the teachers. So what should you do? What can we do? When those questions came up, it was not really understood by the teachers in terms of what to do. But as it says here, right in the middle of the screen says active learning. So this is really on the opposite extreme of passive learning. So passive learning means you just sit there and you listen and just copy whatever the teacher wrote on the blackboard. But active learning is different. Active learning is the student taking the initiative to solve problems. So we said, let's strive for that. Let's make active learning come true in the classrooms. Then the possibility will heighten in terms of better learning environment. So this meant that teachers could also evaluate their own way of teaching. If they see, or if they're able to create the children taking the initiative to solve problems on their own, then that is a great educational environment. So in the past, the ministry was telling the teachers to do this and do that. Therefore, the teachers were compelled to do the kind of education that was just problem solving. But rather, the lesson evaluation, how to tell if you're teaching correctly or not, is seeing how the children are responding to the teaching. So this was a big paradigm shift for us and for them. So creating a learning experience and environment for children is the role for the teachers. That was a discovery. So which meant that we will provide high educational materials. Use them creatively. Then the children will be able to learn like this. So that's the message we proposed to the teachers. So that was what our project was about. So in actuality, how were the textbooks made? So there were many different questions, problems, but we made one lesson into one page. So I think that was an important point. What this meant was that when the class began, what the teacher would do and what the students would do, that was clearly understood. So this was creating a learning behavior. So even in Japan, there are children who say that I don't know how to study. There are many children like that here in Japan too. So when you hear the school chime ring, then you're going to start with question number one. Try to understand question number one. And when that problem is solved, you confirm how the problem is solved, and then you summarize it, and then you move on. So this process would happen in the 45-minute lesson in classroom. And then, so those roles we wanted the teachers to understand. So one page for one class. So this is a very simplified method. So let's say in 1 hour, if you only go to question number 2, that's not good. Therefore, time management becomes a key here. And another thing that was positive was that when it came to mastery part, if you can attain the goal, what does that mean? So we clarified that. So one specific example is that the first question, so this is the mastery question number 1. If there are more children who are able to go to this step 4, the more they are, then that means your task is successful. So I've been to many different countries, but it was always vague whether the goal was attained or not. And there were always 2 reasons why. Number 1 was that the setting of that goal was vague to begin with. It said, for example, it says this would be understood. But that point was not in the textbook, so the teachers had to fiddle through the dark. However, another problem was that what kind of situation would be born out after solving the question? That was not explained. So oftentimes when I go to different countries, I ask, was your lesson goal attained? The teachers would always answer yes. And I said how and why. And then they would say, the students I called on at the end of the class, they were able to answer my question. So I would say that that's because the studious ones, the competent ones were able to answer the questions, but did the other students understand? And the teachers would say, I think so. So I would say, it's not, I think so. We talk about competency, but we have to look at the competency. You have to create an environment where competency is prevalent. Then what do we do to make that happen? So that's how I used to talk to the teachers. And then, so change from just studying to support learning, right? So how do we do it? So one of the policies that the El Salvador Ministry of Education took was to make cost zero, cost free, because if you add too many costs, then for example, training costs, if all these costs incurred, then only when projects would allow that cost to be used, then you can go forward with that. Therefore, this discussion had to go on for lengthy periods of time before the budget was set. Therefore, it's not cost-centered, but just put it in the training development of the of the teachers. So their reason why for this cost free was that it's done during their working hours. So why do they need to get paid extra? So what to do was the next question. So somebody trains somebody else, then the trainer becomes higher position than the trainee, and then they start saying, well, we got to be paid more. But it's not that, but it's more peer learning among the teachers on the same level. It's not a teacher that's there, but a facilitator is there to do time management, to provide programs. So that was the idea by the El Salvador Ministry of Education, and I thought this was very reasonable idea. So let's say the facilitator, for example, uses mathematics as a theme. Can you understand mathematics completely? But the Ministry of Education would say that's not the way, because in the textbook and in the training material, it defines the competency of the teachers. So the teachers would read it, and if they didn't understand, then just like the children, they will do peer learning so that they can understand. And especially when facilitators are asked questions, facilitators don't have to have all the answers. Because let's say there are 20 teachers, then some of the teachers are saying this. What do you think? If the facilitator talks like this, then not just El Salvador, but in other countries, there are always competent teachers in any group. Then the competent teachers would answer the question. Then the others listening to that teacher can learn in that environment. Then the facilitator no longer becomes the teaching person, but facilitate. So the facilitators can also learn together in this peer learning. Then this kind of environment becomes cost-free. Therefore, by doing this, the El Salvador Ministry of Education was able to be released from the binds of costs. So by choosing a day in the calendar, by incorporating this effort, they were able to do it. And I thought that this was a miraculous occurrence compared to all the other countries I've been to. So if possible, if other countries could follow suit, then I would think this would be a wonderful thing. And I'm sorry, I'm talking very long about this, but what we did was that so the teachers would come and they have to be able to obtain some kind of knowledge. They have to feel that it was helpful. And also, after going back into their own confined space called a classroom, nobody's watching them, nobody's observing them, but they have to be motivated to change their behavior. So that's how we creatively worked. And we talked about this with the ministry, and that's how we said we have to creatively make this program work. Like for number one, it says here number one, but they would bring together their notes, they would bring together their test results and show. So they would look at the evidence. It's evidence-based learning. And that's how they would reflect, in how they taught their classes. So if there's only one teacher in this situation, this would be pretty difficult. So it was important for all the teachers to gather so that they could compare their own experiences and reflect upon their own experiences. Then this would be meta awareness. This is a psychology language, but your action is watched by another you, so reflection happens. お願いします。
Second point is that the students solve their own problems on the second term, then make the vague understanding to clear understanding. When in the underdeveloped country, there are teachers who cannot write down the equals because they do not understand the calculation itself. But then how only the self-learning, it's very difficult. But by comparing, seeing with each other, then why do I need to put equals in the calculation? So by doing so, the teachers gradually can make the understanding clearer. That is a very important process. So let's say we have 20 teachers, then there are some good at some calculations, some are good at the puzzles, then or the graphs. Then among teachers who learned about mathematics, the number is few. So our program was very effective. And the other thing is the review of the yearly curriculum. To our regret, there was a reduction unfinished tasks always. So we try to solve that problem because we try to finish all the tasks. Then what to do? Then comparing with each other. Peer learning is very effective. You will notice, oh, I am behind. Then under the curriculum, there are the tasks in the year. Then we can see your task, that you have unfinished task or not. Then teachers start thinking, how should I improve myself? Then, so gradually teacher can improve their ability of teaching. And that must be the common sense among the country. Therefore, such activities is very effective. At that time, it is important for the ministry and then the instructor not to tell them what to do. For example, the students may be watching TV and the mother says, have you finished your homework? Oh, I'm going to do it now. Then I lost my energy. Then it's the same way, same logic. So the education ministry or instructor says what to do, then the teachers lose interest. Oh, I was told forcefully. Well, in my case, maybe I feel that way. Oh, they are really bossy. I know that, but teachers understand in thinking. However, they need to put that into action. And the government needs to support such attitude, behavioral change of the teachers. So at the end of the curriculum term, teacher can know that they themselves have improved or not. They are improving their lesson or they are improving their classes by themselves. Then eventually the students' ability or attitude of problem solving can improve. Then the scores get higher for students. That has been the strategy of El Salvador Educational Ministry. Is it really true? As a JICA, we needed to check the effectiveness of this approach. So since 2018 up to 2019, we had evaluation of effectiveness. This is a graph result. Year 0 is a baseline that nothing has been done. As a pretest, intervention group and non-intervention group were divided, and these two groups are the same level as a baseline. Then the red one is the intervention group. There are 3 phases of SMATE I explained will be inputted in this red group. Then was there any difference after a year later? There was a comparison. This is the popular way of comparison. We call it randomized control trial. After 1 year, as you can see, that the learning improved by a standard deviation of 0.48. The second year, we continued on in the 3rd grade and 4th grade. And in 2019, it was distributed to all the country. Then we have checked again in the 3rd grade. Then one group is 1 year intervention, and then the other group is 2-year interventions. Then that improved 0.12 standard deviation compared with the 1st year. Therefore, if we continue on, that learning ability will get better and better. We don't know, because of COVID-19, there was some projects were stalled. But in any case, El Salvador Educational Ministry has a proof that their activity has been very effective. Here, I show the interesting picture here. The students also has peer learning as well as the teachers. And then there is the members of the Ministry of Education. And members of Prefectural Board of Education is above the members of the Ministry of Education. So all the participants must be the main players. In the previous project, Ministry of Education demanded the Prefectural Board of Education. Then goes up to teachers and goes down to students, but we shouldn't take that approach. All the participants in all layers, for example, student may think, I want to be observed by the teacher, I want to become capable. Teachers as well, in the past, under the development plan, because teachers' quality is low, so we needed to improve that, but not that way. El Salvador Ministry of Education says, I trust you, teachers. You are the only hope. So let's work together. That kind of approach they took. So teachers, when they were told, oh, your competency level is pretty low, so you have to do this way and that way, it won't give them the motivations. But instead, the government says, oh, you are the only hope for us, then they will try to encourage themselves, and teachers themselves want to be trusted and approved. In the past, the Ministry of Education members and I had a discussion about this SMATE project. This is they think it's their project for the teachers, because in the past, central government or other international organization came to us to do this and do that. But this project, Esmate asked us, and then because we are the only one who knows the classroom, so they trust us and then and rely on us. In that case, we teachers must create a better learning environment for students. Always the prefectural board of education is in between, so they must be the one who are really energetic and then has high motivation in between the government and teachers on site. For that purpose, the Ministry of Education created the division in each prefecture. The same goes to the Ministry of Education. In the past, foreign aid organization or your country has this bad point, so do this and do that for improvement, but they also want to be recognized. Therefore, RCT verification is very effective because they can verify the effectiveness. In that paper, as an international paper, it has been recognized. El Salvador Ministry of Education's activity has been recognized because each layer in the education has been approved or recognized internationally. That is very important. Unless otherwise, if one layer stagnates, it won't be effective. In this sense, the Ministry of Education of El Salvador was really excellent. Like a water flows from top to bottom. Right now, I am going to overseas as a business trip, and currently I'm working on this project, textbook, and then opportunity for learning and high quality material and active learning. It's within the classroom. However, beyond the classroom, the government needs to really oversee the whole project. In this sense, evidence is very important. Efforts toward realization of curriculum policies based on evidence. That is a goal. And then that is a start of evaluation. Then doing some survey or education ministry oversees the classroom. Then after doing the survey or the trainings, that they must have evidence such as textbook revisions on continuous professional development of teachers. Then the government needs to set the platform for better textbook, for active learning, and for peer learning. All the participants must be the main player in this project. In this budget, we need to have a budget for the textbook divisions. Then, as a country, El Salvador plan to check action cycle, PDCA cycle can be effectively active for the self-improvement as a country or in the classroom too. In that way, they can continuously improve their way of teaching. This is very, very innovative. As Phelps is here, I really respect the command achievement. Thank you very much.
西川さん、どうもありがとうございました。
So thank you very much. It was a very interesting lecture, and we thank you very much. It's not just about international cooperation, but this talk was very beneficial for various areas. So from now, we would like to begin our Q&A sessions. So we did have several questions ahead of time. So we did make a slide with the answers to those questions. Before that, Nishikata-san just mentioned it very briefly. He was very humble about it, but can you do a close-up? Can you make a close-up? So this is the book he wrote. This is education, learning improvement of mathematics and arithmetics for Central American children. So this book title we referred to make the title of this seminar, but like it was mentioned, you know, the first public Central American education project, how the issues were, what the challenges were, how they overcame all the challenges, mathematics education, so much content in this book. So please, if you have a chance, take this book and please learn from it. Okay, so let's begin our Q&A session. Let's go ahead. So can I begin? Yes, please go ahead. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm sorry my lecture was very long, but we did get questions ahead of time. So these slides have answers to those questions. So let's go through each one. So number one, this is about the difference between there and over here. But we talked a lot about the difference in mathematics techniques, but I talked about this a lot, but Japanese mathematics, arithmetics education, we don't just bring it, JICA doesn't bring it over to other regions, because that's what the ministry, the respective Ministry of Education, they do, right? So for example, I talked about the specific case of El Salvadorian education contents. So they each have their own. So I think there's no problem there. And the merits and demerits of Japanese education, I think this is in the bounds of international cooperation, I believe. But so there's different ways it's done in Japan. I think it's different by individuals. The media really focuses on the negative sides of our education, but when it comes to Japanese international cooperation, our stance is to really maximize the Japanese educational merits. What I think is great about Japanese education is that everything is focused on the child's learning, whether what subject it is, even if it's a special activity, even if it's about values, everything is, like I said in my lecture, how is the child going to be developed? That is always the question. So this idea, I think, is a huge merit in the Japanese education world. So if you have that idea, then how can that idea be employed in El Salvador or in other countries? And the JICA's strength, Japan's strength, is that the Japanese education is always at the basis of how we think. Of course, there are disadvantages, but there's no point in emphasizing the disadvantages. And systems are never 100% perfect. So Japanese compulsory education compared to other countries is extremely streamlined, and I think it's a robust system. So that is one big benefit which we try to maximize always. So what I put as challenges of education improvement, but this is really about the El Salvador Ministry of Education. But you have to have policy intent, and you also have to have sustainability, because in developing countries, what we see as some sort of a problem is that the government changes every 4 years or so. Then new people, new politicians who come in, they deny everything that was built up so far, which means that education policies get lost. So this time, the El Salvador Ministry of Education had robust policies, which is education improvement. So no matter how the government changes, the program will still, system will still be there, and the ESMATE strategy will not be lost, and it would be dispersed into other subjects like national language, science, social studies. Therefore, a comprehensive education improvement can happen. So one of the internationally acclaimed point was that the education policy was robust and sustainable. This point was extremely acclaimed internationally, and I think this is very important, because no matter what good things you do, if it stops in 3 or 4 years, then education and learning does not improve. So I think this is a very important learning point. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, research skills. Okay, so sorry, he's on mute. Okay, there's no audio because he's on mute. So if you are a teacher, then you need to establish assignments within your own framework. That is most important. Okay, he's on mute again. Okay, so at that time, to solve problems, the method of solving problems has to, first of all, be foreshadowed, because you cannot intervene right away. You need to, first of all, analyze it and foreshadow it first. And number one is that if you're talking about a class, I think in grad schools, you've learned about this, but what you've learned in grad school is really going to help you, because there are many training materials from the National Research Institute. So if you read it very well, then you can understand the way of thinking. Let's move on to the next question. So, okay, this question is about this person wanting to engage in international education cooperation. So thank you so much for your interest in our line of work. I really look forward to many competent people joining, so that we can really raise our quality. Then what I want to ask is, what the question asked is, what kind of knowledge, what kind of competencies is important. So I wrote it out here on this slide. Number one is communication skill, because if you're a JICA specialist and if you're dispatched to another region, you're not going to do it. It's what the Ministry of Education is going to do, and you're going to support them. Therefore, communication, you need to communicate with them. In terms of the El Salvadorian Ministry of Education, Mr. Felix is here with us now, but we had many lengthy discussions. We had many lengthy discussions with the other leadership. So first of all, what our beliefs has to match, or else we cannot come up with a method. Because if we say this is good, do this, then it's only the activity that's going to be there. We cannot get to the goal. And our goal turns into just doing what the work is given to us, right? That's not a good point. Therefore, we have to have the same belief. If the belief is robust, then we will never waver. Number one, next is basic technical expertise. So I said that before that everybody is the main characters. So this is really social psychology, but this is about motivating the people. So we are the ones there teaching. So education as a study is not going to cut it, especially if you're a specialist. You can say great things. Everybody already knows that. So the question is how? How are you going to realize it? And when you do it, first of all, we need to have shared belief or else nobody's going to start doing it. And they might do their work during the project period, but if that's the only thing that happens, then nothing will happen. So the technical expertise is important. Learn a lot, get technical expertise because it will help you. Okay, he's mute again.
すみません。何の話でしたっけ？あ、そうそうそうそう。どんなにいい教科書
Okay, so no matter how great the textbook is, if the teachers don't use those textbooks, then it makes no sense. And the children have to use those textbooks to learn. It doesn't make sense, right? So everything has to relate to each other, and we have to observe that. So textbooks that are easy to use. So other researchers use terms such as teaching code, learning code, which means the teaching codes and learning codes are different by country. So the researchers see how each country can adjust to some sort of user-friendly textbook. And this is a comprehensive view you need to have, or else you will just be stuck in one spot. Another one is being able to foretell. So you look at the trend in that country, and you should build up this ability to be able to come up with a hypothesis, because you can't say what's educationally good, go learn on yourself, because you can't just keep preaching about education. You have to explain, you have to be able to come up with a hypothesis. What makes a difference whether or not you use this or not? And then you need to be able to examine it. So this is the competency I'm talking about. お願いします。
あるんだったら JICA のホームページをですね、見ていただくといろんな
So if you're interested, please check the JICA homepage. You can obtain various information. You can also register as a partner. After you search JICA, you can easily find the partner site. And there are various positions. For example, the junior experts in education field, there are several experts. In JICA headquarters, we work together for about 1 year and then get dispatched. Then there is also the position special contract staff, and they work at the headquarters who has enough experience. Then associate international cooperation specialist was newly established. That right before that the international cooperation specialist, these are the terms is 2 years. In the future, this specialist has become popular. And then there is an international cooperation specialist post. There is also the opportunity to become a JICA staff. And you can, in the midterm of your working career, you can join JICA too. And in each section, there is the post of planning and research officer. This is that the teaching and become active as a volunteer. If you are fluent in a certain language, then you can choose this post and get experience on site in foreign country. Also, the expert contract staff, this person work at the headquarters. If you experience this kind of stuff, you can learn what JICA is, and you can choose whether you can become a JICA staff or you can become a specialist. You have a choice of your career path. And then corporation member is also available. I work with very excellent corporation members. And there are various training courses. As a competency training is also open. And by attending that, you can learn what JICA is. And every September, there is the education week that the Naruto Education, University of Education also participating in. And then by joining the training, you can learn what the task is. Then also the UN volunteer, they have some Japanese availability. So please check. If you really do want to go overseas right away, there is the consulting firms. You can check. If you are approved, then right away you are dispatched to foreign countries for certain tasks. So please check and consider what's suitable for you. That's all? Okay. That's all from my side. Is microphone on? Oh, now microphone is fine. Thank you very much. There is another question to you. Why the teachers at the elementary school to the international cooperation member? At the beginning, maybe you have explained, but could you elaborate on that point? I finished the JOVC and then came back to Japan. I really wanted to be a teacher. And then I was very satisfied. However, I really wanted to work for international corporation. I don't know why I began to think that way. I'm not sure, but in any case, I dared to join. But JICA told me once I joined, I needed to work for at least 5 years. So I worked 5 years and half year. And I still wanted to work for international corporation. Then I chose the graduate school and enrolled in the graduate school. I was really boarding. But as a result, I'm happy. It's difficult to explain why. The answer is simply, I just wanted to do it. Sorry, I didn't answer to the question clearly. Then what's the good points of the international cooperation? I was working as a teacher in Niigata Prefecture elementary school, but that one teacher can talk with the deputy educational minister. Behind that, there are thousands and thousands of children. And then, if you consider the number of parents, it's multiplies. So my action is very important in the foreign country. Of course, the main player is the Ministry of Education. However, if I hear some children saying, "Oh, I did it, I solved this problem in mathematics," then I am very happy. It's not only the simple math, but also students really endure to learn. Then they experience various subjects of mathematics. The everyday accumulation of learning is very important. The student can learn the ability to endure and be successful. Then after the graduation, or maybe some students quit in midterm, but they can trust themselves for their ability. In underdeveloped country, job opportunity are really not so available compared to Japan. But if they have a skill in math, then it is beneficial for children. So I am helping to those children. That point I feel very happy. Now question and answer from the floor or chat box. In the curriculum of school, in the problem solving, then you have up until the mastery. That kind of layer learning, why did you apply that? Then did you find some disadvantage in the layers? Well, good question. In the textbooks, the contents of learning and then the curriculum are different. In terms of what Japan is very good at, but in terms of how to learn, in considering the Japanese math classes or US math classes, textbooks are totally different. Why is that? US is really advanced. In 1995, James Allen continuously suggested to the teams. Then why US case was not good? They had a video study in the beginning. Japan, US, Germany are involved, and they were compared. The how was different respectively. After that, teams, higher countries also were compared. What are common? What were different? What, meaning contents of learning, were similar? In case of United States, they have a fixed curriculum. However, when we examined, the how point was different. At that time, Japan was using different textbook. What I mean by that is Japanese think, oh, it's a common curriculum. But if you go to the foreign country, it's not common. For example, Germany is different. United States is different. But in case of El Salvador, Japanese textbook cannot be used. The same way in US. In El Salvador, we must check what kind of teaching method is used. Under the curriculum, that the problem solving is a keyword. So I gathered excellent student, and on Saturday I had class to them. At that time, learning process, I ask question and problem, give problem, and then students solve. But in El Salvador, students could solve the problem. Oh, they can do it. Then I learned the pattern of successful pattern. Then I started to discuss what's effective in El Salvador. And by piloting the lesson, at that time I thought if it's Japanese way, it won't be helped. So I decided and suggested to do El Salvador way. There is no perfect institution or no perfect system. As I mentioned before, what is the best way we must think of? Right now, as a challenge, it is difficult to complete the year task. Then, in the junior high school students, do you think they start learning from elementary level? No, that's not the answer. Then let's suggest some lesson or particular task. If we put too much time on that, as I mentioned, the 4 levels or tasks cannot be done in one lesson. Therefore, we have to think of the balance of the lesson. Relating to that, there is another question. 1 page, 1 lesson. What is the point of that? As I said before, that the learning habit can be obtained through that. In a nutshell, the main subject can be solved in one lesson. Unless otherwise, teachers has to revise the way of teaching. Since the classroom ended in between, then the teachers must start thinking all over again for preparation for the next class. Therefore, it is better for teachers to have less time for preparation. That means the children focus on problem solving. And teacher also has confidence of teaching, but the way how to do it depends on the situation. The student really understand one lesson per day, then that's easy for student to understand. When I ask about the textbook of one lesson, then the teacher said, oh, it's made us a whole lot easier to teach, because in the past, always teacher has to tell student, next task is here, next page, please look at the next page. Then students were really passive. That is not the way that without saying anything, student can start learning. So there is no need for orientation. In that way, teacher feels easier for teaching.
So when I was doing it, I was once told that you talk too much, you're too noisy, you know? So the quieter the teachers are, the more students study, right? And the same phenomenon was happening. Teachers don't have to talk too much, you know? You just secure that kind of environment. So this is just like peer learning among the teachers. You just create that robust environment and secure it, then it makes it happen. So this is a win for the teachers too. Oh, I use this textbook and it's really helping me. So I think this is one of the benefits of one page, one lesson system. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions here from the floor? Please go ahead. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, the audio is unclear. I'm sorry, the audio is unclear. And I think it's really important. And were we able to do it? We were busy, so we weren't able to do it. So I think that creating a time like that is important. And in your lecture, you talked about education making children happy, but it's going to depend on where the child was born. So that's the reality. And I kind of thought this is the same in Japan because of the Buraku problem and also the disparity in salary. I think there are the social differences in Japan as well. And you were an elementary school teacher, and then after that, you joined JICA. So in the Japanese schools, especially you were teaching mathematics. So your past experience, how has it helped your current job? That's my first question. And also, let's say that all this system was employed in Japan, but through your JICA career, was there anything that didn't work out well? So those are my questions. Thank you. Okay, thank you. You asked difficult questions, but first of all, in the Japanese education environment, if I had not been a teacher, I talked about competency, right? I talked about abilities, right? I talked about hypothesizing, making up an hypothesis. I think that was a skill which I got trained in when I was a school teacher, because hypothesizing means proposing. If you want to make a proposal, you have to understand the reality, what's happening with your children. So if you want to go to a goal, these are the steps to take. That is a hypothesis. And I think hypothesizing is one of the skills I learned as a school teacher. That way of thinking is, well, there is a goal and there's a method to get to the goal. And underlining that are the children. So you have to really accept the children, or else the method is not going to work. And I think that training really is something I got as a school teacher. So that really helped me. Your second question. So the difficulties. So I was a teacher for 9.5 years in Japan. And in my mind, Japan is best. Japanese classes, I think, Japanese textbooks, I believe, are the best. But that was what I used to think. And I had to deconstruct that idea. So I talked about relativism, but that really had to do with me. That's what I had to do. Relativism, employing relativism, so that I could adjust, so that I could hypothesize strategies to adjust to other countries. And it took me many years. When I was a JOCV person, I was still thinking Japan was #1. That was still the mindset I had. So deconstructing that mindset was difficult. But the experiences in Japan have to be adjusted, but that takes courage, because it kind of feels as if you are being denied. But through my line of work, that is a big learning I got. Japan has to be seen relatively. And I read a lot of literature, like the Thames video study. That was shocking to me. And then the Teaching Gap, the book called Teaching Gap, I read that book many, many times because at first I did not know how to take it. It's in the book, it said if Japanese classes were just run in the US, it didn't work. Why? Because it all goes back to behavioral differences. And that was like a brick thrown on my head. I was very shocked when I read that statement. So I started to really see myself relatively since then. And I just kept reading so many different literature, especially America. Thames didn't work. So there was a lot of study in the 2000s and I read it and I wasn't at one point I wasn't reading about the American situation because it spoke to me so much. So that was the difficult part for me to really get out of my shell and to see myself relatively. So you said you had to deconstruct Japan #1 mindset, and that was difficult. So I'm not trying to compare Japanese education to others, but I used to work in the Japanese education field too. I don't think it's #1, but I think the level is pretty high because visiting other countries, they have, so what are their expectations towards Japanese education? Very high. They expect very highly of Japanese education because Japanese people, because they think that a lot of them told me that Japanese people care about us and that's why they are supporting us. And that's because the JOCV people and all the efforts done by Japan, I think, are bearing fruit right now, especially in terms of mathematics and arithmetics. In the 2000, the rank was #1, right? And Japan, so they really think that Japanese people are good at math and science. So when I talk about relativism in Japanese education, I think the core, what lies at the core, has to remain robust. But mindset has to be relative, and in different ways, the curriculum has to be written in so that anybody can understand. In other countries, you don't see curriculum like that because curriculums are usually written in difficult language. Also, competency-based curriculum, problem solving, these words are often used, but you look at other subjects, they're not content-based at all. So, but Japanese curriculum is really good. There's so much consistency in the curriculum. So I think that core has to be kept, but the method needs to be made relative. So that's what I think. Thank you. Thank you very much. Listening to your lecture, I really felt more strongly in trying to take on the challenge of working abroad. There was one word, teaching code, learning codes. I did not understand those terms. That's my question, #1. Question number 2 is that when engaging in education environments of various countries, how did you adjust yourself? What were the difficulties in modifying? I'm sorry, I used terminology that was difficult for you to understand, but what I mean is action, right? Activity, right? So that's like the teaching method, learning methods. They're basically behavioral languages, and Stimura-san used it, so I used it. But the other point is that, yes, it is difficult. So you need to be able to foretell. And so we're there for only like a short period of time, like 3 years, or at the longest 5 or 6 years, right? So in that limited amount of time, where do you set your goal on? And then to that goal, are you able to, you have to really think of being able to come up with adequate methods. And that's how you build up a project. If you just mistake that, then you're really just going to be wasting tax money, right? So let's say in the period of 3 years, what can you do? This is how you think. And of course, there are differences in situations, but like the El Salvador case, from first grade to 11th grade, we made the textbooks for all those grades in 3 years. In other regions, it's not possible. So it was almost like an impossible task, but the El Salvadorian Ministry of Education said they wanted to. So who is going to write the textbooks? Can you, so JICA asked, can you procure enough textbook writers? And they said yes, but there are not that many countries like El Salvador who say yes to that. Now they have 11 writers of textbooks, but usually in other countries, you don't have that many writers of textbooks. So if the country says, no, we don't have that many people who can write textbooks, then you have to come up with a different idea, because you have to use the tax money effectively and efficiently. So that's the difficult part. Also, the research period is very limited. So let's say if the country has 100 million in population, and if you're there only for 2 weeks or so to do the research, what kind of information are you going to obtain? So how do you do the research? What kind of information do you obtain? That's your first step. Or else, if you gather information that is unnecessary, you can't use those kind of information. So what kind of information I'm going to gather and what I'm going to do, you need to build a hypothesis to engage into that research. And like I said about the time span, you also have accountability towards that country you're working for. And also you have accountability towards the Japanese people as well. So accountability is also important. And I think, yes, that is important.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay, I'm Mr. Adam Keita from Mali. Okay, I have a, sorry, I have
英
a
語のところは通訳不要なので、一応クロックは止めております。日本語で始まったらまたタイマーはスタートしますので。
I noticed that many of the countries are facing the problem of science today because the students don't like, I don't know, or are not like a lot of motivation towards science today. I think, Miss Sincere, can you explain me, for example, the language can be the factor that can explain that lack of motivation? For me, this is my point of view. I would like to get this explanation.
いきますね。マリ出身のケイタさんです。
So this is Mr. Peter from Mali. He's a student. So science education. He said in general. Okay, sorry. So you're talking about education in general. I understand now. So this is about language difficulty. So if the languages are different, maybe that's going to affect your motivation. And I think that was the question. So, okay, so I'm going to answer the question the best I can. So motivation, you need experience of success, or else motivation, you cannot boost the motivation. If you don't have experience of success, but you are told to work hard, I don't think this has to do with language, but for example, a lot of students, they try to be good students during class, and they're there, sitting there quietly, listening to the teachers, right? So, but the students themselves, the children themselves have to have their own successful experience. Successful experience for children is, oh, I was able to understand, the aha moment. Creating that is success for them. So when they have those successive experiences, if they continue that hundreds of times throughout the year, you see anybody with a successful experience can be motivated. So creating that, which means they sit there as good boys and girls because of the teacher, not that, rather make an interesting environment. And that can apply to science, that could be applied to math, so that's how that's the first step in boosting motivation is what I think. Was this an answer to your question? I don't know, but that's for me.
Thank you very much for the lecture. Mr. Nishikata has been very passionate, and I learned a lot from his talk. As a specialist in El Salvador, I have a question regarding the peer learning. In such training, in El Salvador, it was effective. But how to evaluate that? And then do you think that can apply to the other countries? That is a question. Thank you very much for question. I, at El Salvador Educational Ministry, was the one who did, not myself, to transform the behavior. When you think of that, first, it's the social condition or social incentive. And then its audio is muted. Cannot hear. Then progressive monitoring is important. Then you can monitor your progress. Those points are satisfactory. The human can change behavior. So in this sense, peer learning is very effective. First, social incentive. Everyone is doing so, so I should do so. If you are alone, cannot have such kind of thinking. The mandatory, if I am doing so, I can be approved by others without saying anything. For example, let's say that you have a young student, and in the group with student, I'm elderly, but I'm not doing so. So the student will smile at you. So you start feeling, oh, I should do so too. Then the third point, as you accumulate experience, then you can see the progress in learning skills or understanding levels. That means that children are learning more effectively. You can see that. And you can also see the changes of students. Then among or in the teacher's brain, it's a PDCA cycle start running, which is a very good progress. So in this sense, in El Salvador ministry, they apply such method. It was really excellent. Thank you very much for your answer. Sorry, audio is unclear. Okay, this is the next talk live. Next talk live will be done in foreign language. The title is When Culture Meets Mathematics, the Promoting Culture as a Starting Point in Mathematics Learning. The speaker is from Ahmad Dahman University in Professor Luri. With our university and their university have now collaboration project. Currently, we are doing a joint study with them. Audio is muted. Cannot hear. Now then, and this talk live was organized by students. As a secretariat, I didn't do anything. Those students must be commendable. So I would like to introduce those students. So can you zoom the camera to those students? Please give us some short impressions on the today's lecture. And then after graduation, what kind of job would you would like to take? Please say a few words. Tokiwa-san had a reception, helped the reception. Thank you very much. At first, my career path, I would think I would like to go for, actually, in fact, go for the specialist position. In fact, I am going to do that, get assignment on that starting from January. I didn't have opportunity for learning about the insight of JICA activity. So I learned a lot today. Thank you very much. Starting from December and so in January, he's going to be dispatched to check. Thank you very much for your assistance. Thank you very much, Mr. Nishikata, for the interesting lecture. I had a blur image of international cooperation, but it became clear in terms of El Salvador condition. I had a very productive, fruitful time. Thank you very much. I also hope to join in the international cooperation, but I'm not sure how I will be, but I will try to do my best. Thank you very much. He helped out the question and answer session. From the visual edit to everything else he has worked on this project, Talk Live. Thank you very much for Mr. Nishikata. Audio is unclear. Today, hearing Mr. Nishikata, my blur vision became clearer. Thank you very much. I also want to visit various countries and learn more through my experience. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Ms. Tanikawa. She's also engaged in the secretariat work starting from first Talk Live. Thank you very much, Mr. Nishikata. Audio is unclear. I am interested in the international cooperation. I learned a lot today. Audio is still unclear. I'd like to do my best. Thank you very much. Manuel?
Thank you very much, dear Sensei, for sharing with us many things. I think we learned a lot about your experience, and some of us will be able maybe to follow your steps. I'm a chemistry teacher. I'm from Angola. After graduating here, I want to keep on working as a teacher. We have one problem in my country in chemistry because I'm researching improvisation of teaching materials. I want to work with the Ministry of Education to provide materials for science, and I think the experience that Sensei shared here, it helped me to understand many things about the project. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございます。マニュエル・ドランド
Thank
さ
you
んです。
very much. He's Manuel. It's a second year in the graduate school master program in science. After going home, he will continue on his career as a teacher. And how to create a textbook is the challenge for him. But hearing today's presentation, he could learn a lot. Thank you very much. Next, Mara.
Your lecture this morning is very inspirational to me because I am a maths teacher myself by profession. So it really helped me. I am Augustine Mara from Papua New Guinea in the Pacific. This is my second year, the final semester. I'll be graduating in March next year. I want to learn and hear a lot more from you, such lectures, maybe in the future, if time allows. Otherwise, I will be graduating in March, going back, and then I'm planning to be a lecturer in the teachers college, training the pre-service teachers mathematics. Thank you so much for coming to our university. Thank you.
はい、ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. He's a second year in the master program, but also the math teacher. Going home, he will continue on the teaching task as a teacher. This is Hiroyuki Endo. It's the first year in the master's program. I was teaching in Ibaragi. Audio is unclear.
教育っていろんな方法があると思うんですね。なんかカリキュラムであるとか、いろんな手法がある中で、質問がダメでいろいろ学んでるんですが、結局それが誰に入るのかっていうと、トップにあったように生徒、子どもたちなんだなっていうところがすごくやっぱり。
I learned that the children and students are the main player in this project. I am hoping to improve Japanese education too, but I also have interest in foreign countries. I have experience in Djibouti as a JOCV. At that time, I was a volunteer planning. So through that kind of experience as a specialist, as a researcher, I am hoping to continue on to cooperate for international in the field of international cooperation. Thank you very much. He was in charge of the sound. I am also the teacher. This Naruto University of Education students are really excellent. They have a clear vision for their future as a graduate student. Within 2 years of master's program, they really learn and focus on their study. They have their own goal. So after the graduation, they have a clear vision for the future to become a teacher or to become to be engaged in the international cooperation. Audio is muted.
So it's embarrassing having to talk about it again, but okay, sorry about that. So we have to upload it on YouTube, so I'm going to go through it again. So I think that this university students are all wonderful. Why I think so is that so they're not here studying in grad school because they want to. You know, they're here, and in this environment, there are many international students and also students from various parts of Japan. So in these 2 years, they are engaging with people from different cultures. And of course, there are people who are going to be like a specialist to go abroad. Many of you are here because you want to be a school teacher in this country, but you all have your vision and you are working towards a vision. So I have been saying this in many places, but this is how I feel about you all. And this is our 7th instance in holding this event. And the first time, we were just doing it in sort of like a grassroots level, but every time we hold this event, in recent years, I don't have to do much work. You are all taking the initiative to making this a YouTube live, just really heightening the quality without incurring much cost. So I'm just very moved by all your efforts. And I hope that this is all like a handmade event, but we want to continue doing this. So your continued cooperation will be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. So finally, El Salvador, Central American students, they have a letter. They wrote a letter to you and they have a present for you. So please go ahead. Letter or a message. Actually, we have more El Salvadorian, Nicaraguan students, but they're actually back in their home countries to do research, that they're not here, but we have more. Today, we have only 3.
フェリックスさんですね。フェリックスさん、ダグラスさん、イサイアスさん。フェリックスさんがエルサルバドル、残りの 2名がニカラグアからです。はい。
First of all, we want to thank you for sharing with us your experience about the challenges in Central America.
まず最初に中米における数学学習の課題についてですね、ご経験をお話しいただいたことに心より感謝申し上げます。
Additionally, we want to express our gratitude for the work in our region.
あと加えてですね、私たちの地域でのこれまで活動していただいたことに深く感謝いたします。
I started to work with Nishikata-san in 2015 in El Salvador.
私はですね、2015年にエルサルバドルで西方さんと一緒に仕事を始めました。西方さんのですね、人柄だったりにエネルギーですかね、にを心から感じてきました。そうですね、エネルギーとか、情熱とかですね、数学教育および教育政策に貢献するための努力というんですかね、そういったところも本当に、実感、心から感じてきました。
We want to express our high esteem, admiration, and gratitude for the work. Thank you so much.
ありがとうございます。私の国ですね、エルサルバドル、またニカラグア、中米の国々を代表して、西方先生のすべての仕事に対する最高の敬意っていうんですかね、称賛、感謝の意を表したいと思います。ありがとうございました。写真撮りましょうか。
Would you like to take a photo? Okay, let's take a photo.
Thank you very much. はい、
Okay,
それ
so there is one announcement I have. I forgot to tell you, but so we started this event starting with my research team, but from this fiscal year, we're going to have a international cooperation center, and there's a center called that. So we're going to have that sponsor this event from now on, and we're going to work to, well, even this event this time we have worked with them, Tanaka-san, Hori-san. These people have been helping with us with logistics and with rehearsal. So we thank you very much for their assistance and help.
はい、それでは最後、
All right, so finally, we're going to have Professor Ozawa give us his closing remarks. So this is Ozawa from the Naruto Education University. Mr. Nishikawa, thank you so much for coming all the way to Naruto despite your busy schedule, and your lecture was very, very interesting. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And also those of here in this conference room, and those who have joined us remotely from Japan, all over Japan and from all over the world, we thank you for your participation. And also all the students of the organizing office who took part in the steering of this event, thank you very much. So today, we had the pleasure to hear specialist Nishikata's career path so far, and also the JICA projects he had been taking part of. I personally learned a lot about students and teachers and the government really working together with them to motivate them so all of them could take the initiative and would want to take the initiative from the sociology standpoint. I thought that was very interesting. So creating that structure, you know, that whole story about creating that structure was very interesting for me. So we were able to hear about specific description of the work and challenges met on the job and his detailed career path up to this present day. This is something we don't get to hear every day, so it was very interesting. And also, I believe that all the participants here with us today were able to learn greatly from their respective standpoints. And also, thank you so much, Mr. Nishikata, for answering thoroughly all the questions we received. And your encouragement to the young people striving to work in the field of international cooperation was greatly appreciated. I heard that you're going to be flying back to El Salvador shortly, and after that, you're going to have many business trips overseas. So please take good care of yourself as you continue your work. And we truly pray for your continued success. In closing, I'd like to inform you that I hope to look forward to meeting you again at our next talk show. So that's it for my closing address. So thank you very much once again. Okay, so our talk live is so we're now going to call it to a close. So thank you for coming. Also, those joining in remotely, thank you very much.
In the future, things will be better. We will all be kinder to one another. There will be no more wars, and we'll all get along. we will all be happy, and we will all be free. We'll be able to do what we want to do, and life will be perfect, or at least it will be better than it is now. So let's all try to make it happen. It might take some time, but eventually we'll get there, and then we can all look back and say that we made it. We stuck together and we made it through, and everything will be alright.